was hoping not to be back here so soon because I did this last year, but I guess the poor design of this dishwasher has made it necessary. Um, at the base of this door, you have this plastic piece that I've removed that's no longer here, and it trapped debris and food and all kinds of things. It couldn't be removed without disassembling the door, and it couldn't be cleaned even though almost every week my wife and I would dump scalding hot boiling water down here to try and flush it. Anyhow, the base here continued to get nastier and nastier and not be cleaned out. And to my surprise, after just 1 year of cleaning it out, the discharge hose, which goes from the bottom of the dishwasher to the drain on the sink, was plugged up again. And on mine, you just remove this lower cover, and then here's the discharge pump, and it's this pipe here. So let me show it to you now. So you probably have something like this. I have two, not in parallel, in series. One leads to the other. I've just disconnected them. But you can see here that it's really super plugged up. And basically, I cleaned this out a year ago. And again, I'm pretty surprised to see it built up again so much. So we're going to maybe change our detergent. I'm also going to see if I can shorten this line because it has like this 180-degree turn in it, which slows down the velocity of the fluid, which causes it to get stuck in these corrugations. But in general, corrugated tubes like this are not ideal from a flow perspective. They're great for routing because they're flexible, but they're not good for flow. So you'll only get so far using a brush like this. And it took me several hours of racking my brain. But last year, I figured out a really good technique, which was to use some of this wire, cut to length, roughly, the length of the pipe plus maybe a foot. This happens to be about 1.9 millimeters. A little bit thicker would be better, but this is what I had on hand, and it did work. And then I take some Scotch-Brite or some sponge or something like that, and you want to pinch it here at the end. You'll want to twist this up really good so that it doesn't get loose. Straighten out the length that you need and chuck it in a drill. Then you push this wire through the hose so that this is at the very top, and then you start spinning the drill, and this thing will start spinning, and then you can pull this through the pipe. It's much easier to pull thin wire through the pipe than it is to push something through. It's kind of like pushing rope uphill. You can only do it so far. Now this year, I'm doing something different because I have this tool. This is a fiberglass segmented electrical, a line that you would use to run electrical. I'm blanking on the name. Well, yeah, anyway. So they call it a tape. Yeah, sorry, a fish tape. So this is like a fiberglass fish tape that you would use to run wires, electrical wires through a wall. And it's rather thin gauge, but it's sturdy enough for this job. And so I'm going to chuck that in the drill. In this end, I'm going to put some of this, I'll probably tie this into a knot and put this in there and pull it through. And here's the before. And now I'll cut to the after. Before I cut to the after, I thought maybe I would just show it. So in this case, again, I'm using the fiberglass electrical fish tapes. And you can see at the very end there, that is my little piece of sponge. And once it's moving, you can really easily move it along the length. This one isn't as bad as the other one. Now, one of the challenges, once this starts getting really long and floppy, it can become a little bit unwieldy and it can start whipping. If you have a segmented fiberglass thing like this, it's easy. You can just go ahead and remove the sections, and that way you don't have all that excess. But if you're doing, if you're using wire like I did last year, it's helpful to have a second person. That second person can help hold the hose straight so that it's not all wobbly. And that way you can keep the whole assembly quite a bit straighter. So it's just something to consider. Again, in this case, it's really easy. I can just take off the sections as I need to. Oops, I lost the N. Great. All right, that didn't take long to get out. And I'm not going to edit this out, not because I'm lazy, but because I don't want to edit out my mistakes. I want people to understand that I'm a normal guy who makes mistakes. And okay, so this is my first year using these segmented pulls. So the tip is, if you're going to reverse it to take out segments, make sure you're holding on the segment you want to take out, because if not, this piece catches inside and then it pulls itself out. Anyway, we're going to do the last little bit here. You can just see how this sponge does a pretty good job at getting into these corrugations. Some of what you're seeing is on the outside, by the way. And you may have to adjust the way your sponge is in there, because it will start to kind of lay down on itself. What you really want is you want these kind of wings sitting out like that and scrubbing. So I'm probably do a second pass, but that was my first pass. And now I'm going to show you on this big one here. It's going to be really gross. So I'm just going to kind of work my way instead of trying to do it all at once. Just work my way up a little bit. It's quite a bit thicker. You can feel it. And I'm also going to go flush it with a garden hose. And since it's storming outside, I probably won't be able to show that, but it's nasty stuff, that's for sure. I'm going to flush it real quick and then we'll do the bigger section. This is gross, but what's YouTube for? You can actually see you can see that this was in the corrugations. This is just old nasty food. It builds up a blockage. It's disgusting. It's gross. But maybe this will get me more views. I don't know. Go ahead and no. I never will ask for a like. Go ahead and give it a dislike now, unless you like seeing me handle all this nasty stuff. All right, for those of you who are still watching, I don't know why, but I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of this section done. What's going on here? All right, am I in the viewfinder? All right, here we go. We're approaching the nasty stuff. Oh, yeah. Yuck. So as I mentioned, you want to keep the drill moving best you can. Don't go in reverse. And you're probably going to have to do several passes just because there's just so much junk in there. And I'm not doing it this year with wire, but I did it last year with wire. It works great. The fiberglass rods, if you have them, I think they're a little tighter because they don't tend to twist up and spiral out of control. But wire works great, 2 millimeter, something like that. All right. Disgusting. Oh, yeah. All right, I'm going to go flush this and then show you. All right, just keep skipping ahead if this is boring to you, which I kind of hope it is. If this entertains you, then, well, I guess it's good for my channel, but you do sometimes have to ask who's entertained by these things. I'm just kidding, really. I just being a goofball. Okay, I added these little zip ties. I added a couple zip ties and I clipped the wings, or I clipped the tabs to clean the last of the corrugations. I just left them a little bit too long, I think. It's a trial and error sort of thing. All right, still a little bit too much. Now the benefit of this one doesn't have this 90-degree elbow like the other one does. So you can just drop this in from here, and then instead of pushing the scrub brush basically through, which is a little bit more difficult than just pushing the fiberglass rods through. You just do that. All right, if you're still watching, you might be Jeff and one of my big fans. I know that this video will never go viral, but this kind of stuff can be frustrating, and so I'm just hopeful that someone will get some benefit out of it. I'm hopeful that if you're feeling a little lonely because you're the kind of guy who wants to fix this stuff and instead of just buy a new one, then I just hope you know you're not alone in the world. And I doubt that the views from this video will feed my family this month, but I'm doing it. And what I've seen on YouTube is that if you're doing it, there's probably someone who would like to watch. All right. There's more of that nasty junk. All right, last thing I'm going to do is I destroyed an old brush that I had. It was actually, the handle came off of it. So then I thought that was a perfect opportunity. I wired it to the end of this. I'm hoping we don't lose it in there. That would be a real bummer. But we're going to get this last little bit. Oh, there it goes. One of the reasons I don't edit my stuff, like these mistakes out, has to do with two of my favorite YouTube channels, AVE and Matthias Wandel. Not a big fan of AVE's language a lot of the time, but one of the things that I like about both of those guys is you can see the authenticity. Like, they leave their mistakes in. They don't make themselves out to be, people who make no mistakes. And I like that. I mean, that's one of the beauties of YouTube, is that it hasn't been edited. I mean, in the olden days, YouTube didn't have all the editing, and people were just being real and authentic, and I think that was much more interesting than what it has become in a lot of ways. And so, I'm just a normal guy. I make normal mistakes. Here and there I have a clever idea, but I don't want people to watching this to be intimidated or anything like that. And so I try and just be pretty transparent with what I'm doing, mistakes I'm making. And I suppose that makes for longer videos. And I suppose that makes for less efficient videos. I recognize that. But I think we've had enough 60-second clips of how to do something on YouTube Shorts, and everyone makes it look super easy, and then you go to do it yourself and you have problems, and you kind of feel bad about yourself, or you wonder, like, well, what did I miss? And part of what it is that they've edited out a lot of the troubleshooting that they went through, and they don't show, like, all the times when their plan didn't work, and they just show the final result. And so not only is that in a certain way deceptive, but it's just kind of discouraging when you're trying to learn something from YouTube and the guy has edited out all of his mistakes. So basically, for that reason, I'm trying not to do that. So we're gonna go on the other side now. And I know, for what it's worth, in case you're wondering, who in their right, like, does this guy really think people are going to be watching all this? I really don't think most people will be watching still, and that's totally fine. But for those who are, hopefully you'll get a sense of the authenticity of the channel. All right, the job is done. I did my best to collect all of the junk that was in there. And since we're a semi-scientific family here, thought we'd 2 ounces of disgusting old food. Oops, had some camera work there. Yeah, so that's what was in that pipe. Disgusting. Yeah, I trimmed the pipe a little bit, and that's what it looks like now. Perfectly clean. There was an issue where this thing was doing like a 180-degree loop, and so I trimmed it so it wouldn't do that anymore. And if you're still watching, I'll just leave you one last tip. This stuff, this is not just electrical tape. This is called self-fusing tape, and it's not actually sticky to the touch at all. Even when you take off this backing, it's not sticky to the touch. but it's a polymer that fuses onto itself. And so you can use it as electrical tape, but it works good for other things, like maybe putting a new rubberized handle on a hammer or a rake or something like that. But I used it to build up, to just expand the male hose that goes into the female rubber bushing in there. And since it's relatively thick, it's probably a 32nd or so. Because it's relatively thick, it's good at filling gaps. And because it's rubber, it compresses a little bit. So it's amazingly cheap. I couldn't believe it. Just type in 3M electrical self-fusing tape. I think I paid like $2 for this. I couldn't believe it. But I use it all the time. It's really interesting, useful tape to keep on hand. If you don't already have some, pick it up and you'll find yourself using it within a week, and you'll probably never want to live without it again. All right, folks, that's it. If you're still with me, you're a good sport, Jeff. The guy who watches most of my videos, even when no one else does. And I wish you well. Do it yourself. It's rewarding. You'll learn something. You'll save money. You'll be able to help someone else with their problems. And if you didn't like this video and you're still watching, I would have clicked off a long time ago. But if you didn't, then give me a thumbs down and go check out the channel AVE. He's more interesting than me, and I bet you'll like his stuff. Take care, folks.